Ah! How am I gonna do this? I have an idea.
Bible says what? There are some weird, wacky, wild stories in the Bible. Stories you may never have heard before. Why are these stories in the Bible? And what can they teach us about God?
Dirt plus water equals mud. Sloppy, yucky, glorious mud. When's the last time you got your hands dirty in some good old mud? Mud is awesome. It's better than Play-Doh because it doesn't dry so quickly. And some scientists even believe playing in the mud is actually healthy because it can give your body natural immunities. You wouldn't expect that though, just looking at it. Like literally, it's dirty, it's full of dirt. You might not believe that mud is useful for making bricks, taking care of your skin, even creating works of art. Maybe you played in the mud when you were really, really little. Maybe you still do. Maybe you made mud pies, mud castles, mud racetracks. But you know who else did something amazing with mud? Did you say Jesus? You're right. There's a story in the Bible about Jesus using mud to heal a person because sometimes God helps in unexpected ways. We're about to dive into the story, so be sure to click like and subscribe before you forget. Two main characters in this story, Jesus, God's son, who you've probably heard about, and the other is a blind man whose name we don't know. But since he's a blind man, let's pretend his name is Seymour. Get it? Seymour? No? Never mind. Spoiler alert, Seymour is going to see more, a whole lot more in a little bit, but for now, he's still blind. By the way, this story is actually in the Bible in John chapter 9. You can read it. I can't. I mean, I can read normally, but blindfold. So anyway.
Seymour has been blind since birth. Imagine what that must have been like for Seymour as a baby, not being able to see your own mom and dad, not knowing what they looked like. As Seymour grew up, he got to know certain people's voices, of course, but still, you'd have to have a lot of trust just to get around and do normal stuff. Stuff you and I probably take for granted if our eyes work like they should, like going up and down steps, or reaching for food on a table, or riding your bike.
Speaking of which, I have an idea.
Hey, Abby.
Hey, Chris.
So I had this idea and I wanted to run it by you. We're talking about the time Jesus used mud and he was with the guy who was blind. So we thought, what if we got Abby to put mud on her face and walk around blindfolded for a day?
I don't know about mud on my face. I have kids. I can't just put mud on my face and walk around with cucumbers on my eyes all day.
Yeah, I guess.
I would assume I wouldn't be able to see because of cucumbers, like a facial, right?
Oh yeah, that's actually a good point. You could just do cucumbers. I guess that doesn't really solve the problem of how do you film yourself.
I bet my friend Becca could help.
Becca
I
would
bet
help?
she could, yeah, she would probably be willing to film me, especially if I told her facials were involved.
Okay, cool. Well, how about you give that a try and we'll just see how it goes.
Okay, sounds good.
Bye, Abby. Thank you.
Bye, Chris. See ya.
All right, here we go. Aww. Ah. Ah! How am I gonna do this? Dun, 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 dun! All right. Oh yeah. I'm gonna go wash the dishes and try to get to the kitchen to wash them. Here we go.
Okay, come here, Abby. Come here. Follow me. Be careful. There's a door here. I'm right here. Come
Is
on.
there anything on the floor?
Now just do the dishes.
Just do the dishes?
Just do the dishes.
Right. Doing the dishes with cucumbers on my eyes. What's that?
That looks like an avocado.
Do you want to eat it?
Nothing.
That feels pretty clean. I don't think that needs to be washed. This doesn't even feel dirty. Clean. I think the dishes are fine. I don't really do dishes anyways. I think we're good.
What you doing, Abby?
Just feed the dog. Ada! eat? She got it. Is she doing it? Good job, buddy. That was a lot harder than it normally is. I couldn't find her mouth. I just heard her going. Is that in her mouth? I think she's distracted. Brad, you already have one. Okay. Snack time. You were around. Okay. Sit. Sit. See, I can even dog train with this thing on it. See, Cindy?
Yep.
Okay. Good boy, Otto. Good boy. I got it zipped. Thank you.
Okay, back to our story. The blind man we're calling Seymour was at the temple in the middle of the city, Jerusalem, and Jesus saw him. Believe it or not, there were some people who assumed that Seymour was born blind because of something Seymour did, or something his parents did, as if it were God's punishment on Seymour that he wouldn't be able to see. But Jesus said,
It isn't because this man sinned. It isn't because his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's power could be shown by what's going to happen. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Then Jesus spit on the ground and made some mud with the spit and put it on the man's eyes.
Okay, seriously, Jesus, making mud with your spit to heal a blind man? That's so awesome and random and kind of gross, but also awesome. Oh, yuck. So that happened. Who knew spitting was in the Bible? Anyway, Jesus really did make some mud spit and put the mud on Seymour's eyes. Now, you might think this was the moment when Seymour was healed, but it wasn't.
Then Jesus said, Go, wash in the pool of Siloam. Siloam means sent. So the man went and washed, and he came home able to see.
Hold up, did you catch that? Jesus puts mud on a blind man's face and tells him to walk to another place? Turns out the distance from where Seymour was by the temple to the pool of Siloam was 720 meters, or 2,362 feet, which is almost half a mile, which is a long way to walk if you can't see. So that walk, at minimum, would have taken 10 minutes. Imagine what that must have been like for Seymour, to walk down all those steps, past all those people, with mud on your face. You'd have to have a ton of trust. And my friend John's going to teach us what trust is all about.
Let's talk about trust. When you trust someone, you believe they'll do what they say they'll do, or they are who they say they are. You trust or have faith that they're telling you the truth. Here's another example of trust. I've had this chair for a really long time. It's strong and sturdy, and it's never broken. Whenever I sit in this chair, it holds me up and I don't fall. So I trust that if I sit in it right now, it'll hold me. Or here's another example. Every time I eat a donut, it's sweet and delicious. So I trust that when I take a bite of this, it's gonna be good. And I might get a little bit of a sugar rush. Or maybe there's a person you trust. Maybe there's a person who always shows up when they say they will, or they say they love you and then act like they love you. So you trust them. Trust or faith is about believing you know the truth because someone or something is consistent. That means it doesn't go changing all of a sudden. So if we're talking about God, trusting him looks like believing he is who he says he is. And God calls himself a lot of different things, like good, strong, kind, loving, our Father, holy, wise, generous, forgiving, and lots more. So when we trust God, we believe him when he says he cares for us. We believe him when he says he has a plan for us. We believe him when he says he forgives us. We believe him when he says we can talk with him. We believe him when he says he is good. We believe him when he says he is always with us. It takes time to build trust, but the good news is God has always and will always be the same. No matter what, God is trustworthy.
Well, that was fun. But trusting God, especially with something that's not in your control, like being born blind, or having an illness, or being lonely, something like that can make it really difficult to trust God. Imagine a whole lifetime of being blind, like our guy Seymour. Again, we don't know much about him, not even his real name, but we can bet that Seymour was really, really good at trusting. He trusted Jesus, and he was healed. We can trust God to help us, even if he helps in unexpected ways. A lot of times having faith in Jesus means trusting him even when things are tough. You might pray for something you want or need, and you might have to wait a long time before you get an answer. You might be in a situation where things are out of your control, and you need to trust that God's in control, and he'll keep you safe. It's easy to say you trust Jesus, but sometimes it's not so easy to really trust him. We have to practice trust. We have to remember how God has been faithful or how he's kept his promises in the past and train ourselves to trust him, even if God sometimes helps in unexpected ways. Let's take a minute and do that right now.
Think of something you can't do by yourself. Mark 10:27 says, Jesus looked at them and said, "With man that is impossible, but not with God. All things are possible with God." Peter walked on the water, all because he believed Jesus could help him do it. Tell God you trust him to do something you can't do by yourself. Think of something in your life that you don't understand or maybe you don't like. Job lost everything he had, even his friends and family. But he said to God, "I know that you can do anything. No one can keep you from what you plan to do." Sometimes life is hard, but God knows what he's doing. Tell him you trust him with something you don't understand. Think of something you're afraid of. In the book of John, Jesus says, "I give my peace to you. I do not give it to you as the world does. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." Tell God you trust him with something you've been afraid of. Think of the things you don't know, like what will happen in 10 years or tomorrow. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." Trusting in God means having faith in him. It means being sure that he's as powerful as he says he is. It means having confidence and hope that he'll do what he promises us in the Bible. Take a minute and tell God you trust him. Tell him you trust him with the things you can't do. Tell him that you trust him with the things that are hard. Tell him that you trust him with the things you're afraid of. Tell him that you trust him with everything.